Our first speaker is distinguished Toastmaster Jonathan Goossen. In March, Jonathan gave a speech on the beginning of his celiac journey. Celiac disease is genetic and requires an unknown to activate it. Once activated, gluten causes the immune system to attack the body's nutrient absorption system. Today's speech is another part of that journey. Jonathan is giving a 8 to 10 minute speech on the presentation mastery path. He is using the researching and presenting project to present a speech titled My Celiac Journey, the Research. Please join me in welcoming distinguished Toastmaster Jonathan Goossen as he informs us about My Celiac Journey, the Research. Jonathan Goossen.
Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight, is a phrase from a song that I learned as a child. The red is for North Americans, the yellow is for Asians, the white is Europeans, and the black is Africans. Growing up, I was taught that all races were the same, all skin colors were the same. Since then, I've also learned there are 2 other colors. Olive is for Mediterranean, and brown is for Latin America. I was taught that skin color is identical to hair color and eye color. They're simply attributes. More recently, I have learned that there is a difference in skin color. You probably weren't expecting a speech on racism. You're probably expecting one on celiac disease. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, there is a difference in skin color. It makes a difference. One insight that I learned is that the darker your skin, the longer you can stay in the sun before you start to burn, and the slower your skin produces vitamin D. Now, my learning how to research started back when I was a child as well. 4th grade. I learned how to use the library and the card catalog. Those of you that have not spent hours in a library are missing a wonderful enjoyment. Those of you that don't know what a card catalog is are showing your youth. It's now been replaced by the computer. In 6th grade, I learned how to use an encyclopedia. Also obsolete, made obsolete by the internet. In high school, I learned how to format a report, a research report. When I got to college, I learned how to use periodicals to get information. My last term paper in college, I got an A, and it was so good that it changed the instructor's opinion on the topic. I get into the workforce, and when I first started, everything was fine. All the research I did was on how to do a better job, how we could get more done with fewer errors and less hours. But then the company decided that they wanted me to be on the teams to help find the replacements for our hardware and software. And I quickly learned that the internet was not the only place you can't believe everything you read. Anything from a company about their product is usually from the sales department and is geared towards their product and trying to make the other products look bad, oftentimes by comparing their newest to the other products' older stuff. So on the team, I'm doing the research, I know how to get all this stuff, and then I find out that a lot of the books that I'm researching in and the periodicals, a lot of stuff on the internet, are written by people who work for those companies. So again, those are also slanted. And so then I'm looking at, okay, so the book says that this product is good, and this is the one for that's older. I go to that company, and sure enough, that product has these issues. But then I look at the date on that article, and it was old. I go to the company's newest products, and they are equivalent to the one that the other company said was better. So there's a lot of stuff that, with research, that I had to learn on the job. One day our manager said, you also need to start looking at your people you know, your contacts in other companies, and see if anyone's used these products we're looking at. Do they have any issues? How was the service? Get it from people who have just recently used it. Okay, now I have all this information. I know how to research. I know how to validate the research, looking at where it comes from, how old it is. And then I get the fateful call from the doctor on a Friday evening. Hello, doctor. I have celiac disease. I need to go gluten-free. You don't know much about it? You want me to go online, look up gluten-free and celiac disease, and go gluten-free immediately. Okay. I get off the phone and I start looking up. For the next several days, I am looking at everything I can find. It is easy to find information on celiac disease and gluten-free. I found out that celiac disease is a genetic disorder, and if you have the gene, then it has to be activated. They have no idea how it's activated. Once activated, then gluten becomes a poison. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, rye, barley, and oats. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, rye, barley. Somehow that oats is not always on there. But I found other research. It turned out that it affects the nutrient absorption. So once gluten gets into the system, then it causes the immune system to attack the nutrient absorption system in the gut, in the upper intestine. But I also found online and from the physician's assistant 30 days after I was diagnosed that I also have to look at hair products and skincare products because they sometimes have gluten. But then online I found that you don't have to worry about skincare and hair color because it doesn't affect the skin, it affects the gut. That's where it all happens. Okay, I'm getting these mixed stuff, and I finally found an article that says that oats used to be considered to have gluten because when they were testing it, it had been cross-contaminated because it was stored, transported, and processed using the same equipment as wheat, rye, and barley. Oats itself does not have the protein. I started looking back at some of the stuff I found, and sure enough, all the wheat, rye, barley, oats was old. So now within the celiac, I've got to look at how old is it, and then where does it come from? Turned out the guy that was saying that don't have to worry about skincare products was simply a forum user, didn't know much about celiac, was not a physician, totally useless. I also found from a physician source that celiac, when the gluten protein gets into the bloodstream. So it takes about 2 to 3 hours for it to go through, break down, and get into the upper intestine and start being absorbed. Once it hits the bloodstream, that is when the immune system activates and starts doing the damage. If it comes through the skin as absorption into the bloodstream, as soon as it's the bloodstream, it also activates celiac, attacking the nutrient absorption system. Okay, so now I know how to research it. And initially I was researching about every 6 months, and more recently I found out there's a lot of changes, a lot of new research. And I now get an e-letter weekly from celiac.com. And recently I found an article that was real interesting. It was written by one of the users on the forum that has celiac. She had found this podcast and about how people with celiac were more at risk for COVID-19. And so I went to this podcast and looked and downloaded it, went through it, and it was real interesting that yes, people with celiac are more at risk than the average person, but not as much as those with underlying conditions or over 65. Unless the gluten has caused the immune system to not absorb other things you need, and now your immune system might be knocked out. But I listened to the entire hour, and the doctor for that part of it was Joseph A. Murray, MD. He was a gastroenterologist at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. He runs a celiac disease research and clinical program. So a very valid person to listen to. And so I listened to the entire thing, And he also said that celiac is a Caucasian disease. 1% of Caucasians get it. And then he mentioned that when he first was learning about this, he's Irish, he's from Ireland. He thought that it was an Irish disease, but then he found out that those in Norway had a much higher incident rate. And those outside of Caucasian still sometimes get it, but extremely rare. That I probably would not have even caught if it hadn't been for racism in the news. Back to where we started, racism. So, your skin color also makes a difference because it makes you more susceptible because of your genetics to some disease. And I was thinking back, I have heard in the news about various things that come up and they're more prevalent in one group or another. Usually they're specified in black or white. More recently I've heard Latino. But recently there was a celebrity that died of colon cancer, a certain type of colon cancer. It was never announced until he died, and when it was being announced, it was pointed out that it was much more prevalent in the black population. So skin color does make a difference. Now, when I look at skin color for myself, I'm concerned with my health. When I'm looking at skin color in other people, I'm looking at the person, their personality, their actions, and their knowledge and experience. For instance, when I look at Carol Pearson, what I see is a bubbly personality. She walks into a room and it lights up. And that's what I get from her. She also is very good at evaluations. A very useful person to have around. When I look at Darlene Burrow, I see someone that cares about people, and likes to share her knowledge of communication and leadership skills with anyone that'll listen. When I look at AJ, I see someone that is very good with humor. I want to learn humor from AJ. I'm hoping he keeps coming virtually so I can keep learning more from him on that. So moving forward, when you're looking at yourself, you can look at your skin color in terms of how does it affect your health. But when you look at other people, please do as I've learned to do. Don't look at their skin color. Look at what they can provide and how you can help them provide it better. And when it comes to research, any topic can be researched, including skin color, how it affects you, and racism. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jonathan.